everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Male Perspective. I am your host, Lana Reid, and today I have with me Mr. Richard Kennedy. He is a teacher and a swim coach down there in Georgia, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Albany, Georgia.
Albany, Georgia. All righty. And we're going to talk about this concept, this idea, this myth, this problem we have to overcome, talking about Black folks don't swim. But first and foremost, Mr. Kennedy, I want to welcome you to the show. Thank you for making time for me today. I truly, truly appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right. And I also want to give you congratulations as we start, because I read that you got Teacher of the Year in Doherty County School System, correct?
Yes, for my school.
Awesome. Congratulations. Congratulations. Now, as I was getting ready for today's show, I had to, figure out this whole little thing about Black folks don't swim. And I was researching a couple of things. So, according to the U.S. Swimming Foundation, 64% of African American kids do not know how to swim, compared to 40% of Caucasian kids. Now, let me be honest with you, Richard. This hit me kind of blind, because there must have been a town hall meeting that we had, and y'all didn't give me the memo to come to, because I was born in a small southern city, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and I guess I just hit a little sweet spot, because when I was born, it was a Black part of town, and there were public pools. And I remember as a young girl, my parents and my older cousins taking me down to the pool, and I learned to swim at the age of 2, and there was a lot of other young kids there. So I just assumed that Black kids swam, because that's what I saw. And then my dad went into the military, and we went and traveled, and I continued to swim in different diverse environments. It wasn't until I hit college. This was a whole new concept for me. I didn't really understand this until later on in life, that Black folks weren't in the water as much as I thought they were. And I guess for us, as Black people, we tend to be very generational. We pass down messages from generation to generation. So if your mom doesn't like cats, pretty much the kid's not going to like cats. If your parents tell you don't step on a crack, you're going to break a mother's back, we tend to pass it on. But since you're like knee deep in it, I want to ask you, as a swim coach, because I think part of the problem is the parents that are bringing their kids to you to teach them how to swim. Are they of the group that knows how to swim and they're just continuing on that tradition, or they're the group that I don't know how to swim, but I need to change my fear and get my kid involved in this? What type of parents are bringing their kids to you?
This is a conversation that I was having recently with my aquatics director, because I've done swim lessons for several years, almost all of my adult life. And whenever someone brings their child to the pool for swim lessons, one of the questions that I always ask the parent is, do you know how to swim? And many of these parents tell me that they can't. So it's definitely a generational thing that I've seen. And in addition to that, one of the things that also comes up is the fear that many of the parents have, they've instilled in their children. They hear things like, don't go to the pool, you're going to drown, or stay away from the water, you're going to drown. They've had this fear instilled in them, and the parents mean well, because they're trying to protect their kids the best way that they know how. But it's definitely been a generational issue in my experience. In fact, one of the things that I was recently talking with my aquatics director about was trying to start some type of parent-child swim lesson program this summer, so that it would be, one, a bonding experience for the parent and the child, and two, it's just a way of breaking that generational curse, breaking that generational fear of the water that's instilled in so many, out of trying to protect them, but really not knowing that you're giving them something that's sticking with them their entire life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just was, like I said, I got exposed to water at a young age. So, when I started hearing black folks don't swim, I was like, you just get in the water, you do like this. What's the problem? Why, what you scared of? But, I had to really accept the fact that for, many of us, it really is a internal fear that we're passing on. So that's good to know that, some of the parents are, willing to. Well, I guess I should say it's good to know that you guys are kind of creating some new ways to the parent your child classes to kind of get both involved. Because I think I had read, an article. This lady, she lost her. The sister lost her son in South Carolina to. Uh, he fell in the creek or something like, and he couldn't swim, and
Mhm.
she had passed that, on to him. She didn't swim, her mother didn't swim, so he didn't swim. But after he died, because he didn't know how to swim, she actually learned how to swim, became a lifeguard, and is now in incorporating some programs into her area for the kids, to swim. Now let me ask you this, real quick, because you are black and you are a swim coach. So how did you get introduced to swimming?
Well, I learned how to swim at the Boys and Girls Club, and it was something that was instilled in me as a child. That was one of the things that my mom wanted to make sure that I knew how to swim, and then it just stuck with me throughout the rest of my life. I went from learning how to swim at the Boys and Girls Club to joining my college swim team and joining a couple of club teams to now, in addition to being a swim instructor, I actually coach the swim team that's at my YMCA. And I'm actually in grad school right now at West Virginia University getting my master's in sports coaching because my goal now is to coach swimming at a collegiate level. And
Awesome.
that again goes with dispelling that myth of blacks and swimming and water because there are not too many college coaches who look like me.
Mm-hmm. That is true.
And I'm fortunate to actually have a team where there's a good level of representation on the team. Quite a few of the kids that are on my swim team are actually African American.
Awesome. Good stuff. Good stuff. Now, does mom swim? You said it was important for her to get you to swim. Does she swim?
She can swim a little bit, but not enough to go out, in the deep water.
Okay. Okay.
Not to the point where she's able to save her own life.
Okay.
And she really just stays away from water.
Okay. Well, at least she knew enough. And I think that's one of the things that we have to realize as parents, though, even though I have this fear, I don't want to pass this on to my kid. So I think that's very commendable of her to say, look, I can't, but I want to make sure that my son knows how to. So let me go ahead and enroll him in these programs to make sure that he knows how, to swim. So I think that's commendable on her part. Now, I want to, also kind of talk about something else that I think that's a problem, with blacks not having exposure to swimming in the water. And like I mentioned earlier, the way I got it was there was public pools in my
Mm-hmm.
community, which was predominantly, well, at that particular time, it was an all black area. Um, but over the years, those pools were removed from the community. And as a matter of fact, my mother had to, when she moved back to the city where we're from, she had to actually fight to have a pool put back into the black community so kids would have an area to, swim, to learn how to swim. But the reality is, a lot of our communities, urban communities, do not have pools for our kids to learn how to swim. So, where you're at, or how does somebody go about finding some place or some lessons or whatever in our communities? Because sometimes we just don't have those resources.
You're definitely right. There is a lack of the resources. And before I answer that question, is it okay if I address why there's a lack of those
Go,
resources?
go ahead.
Well, one of the big issues with that is going back to what you said. There's very limited access, and part of that started during the time of segregation.
Mm-hmm.
There were pools that were community pools, but blacks were not allowed to swim in many of those pools.
Mm-hmm.
They were terribly mistreated if they were seen in those pools, from being spat on and actually having water thrown on them. To I've actually seen one video where there was someone who actually had a flamethrower pointed at them.
Mm.
they were threatened with being burned if they didn't get out of the pool. So a big part of that goes back to segregation, and I think that's also another reason why that fear has come, because we've lost so many generations of people who had the ability to swim.
Mm.
There's a book called Undercurrents of Power, Aquatic Culture in the African Diaspora, and one of the things that you will see if you read that book is how prior to colonials taking African Americans from their homeland and bringing them to the United States, or bringing them to North America, that blacks were very adept with the water. When the ships came to Africa, they saw many blacks in the water swimming. That's actually part of where the myth of mermaids came from.
Mm-hmm.
They spent a lot of time in the water because that was part of their way of life. There were a lot of fishermen. People just were used to the water. And as slavery and the slave trade happened, then generations of blacks who knew how to swim, that was lost because it was a skill that they were no longer taught how to do.
Mm-hmm.
So in addition to segregation, going back to access, you don't see many pools in our urban communities. And in addition to that, as a swim coach and as a competitive swimmer myself, I know that swimming can be an extremely expensive sport. Equipment cost, some teams have higher fees than others. Just going to a meet itself can be expensive depending on the type of meet that it is. For those that are at the elite level, they spend so much money on training,
Mm-hmm.
and they spend so much money on trying to make sure they have everything that they need. So another part of it is the cost. And for many people who live in those urban communities, they're just not able to afford it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Gotcha.
And one of the things that I think can be done to change that is we have to, one, elect people who make this one of their priorities. I think that voters have the power to put people in office who are going to try to make these things happen. You see that this community is in need of a resource. Well, vote for people that you know are going to work to make those resources be placed in your community.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have people that are not doing what they need to do for your community, you have the right to fire them by not reelecting them.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Yeah, you guys down in Georgia, y'all really came through and came out when it came to voting season this past season. So
Yes.
yeah, y'all practice what y'all preach down there in Georgia. We'll say that.
Yes, ma'am. And another thing that I think can be done is there has to be more of a sense of urgency about it,
Mm-hmm.
because the drowning rate is just way too high and it is just totally preventable. So we have to have a sense of urgency about it. We can't just say that we're going to leave it to the next generation. We have to start working on it now and let it be something that is passed on instead of waiting for someone else to take action.
That's true. That's true. Because one of the things that we love, one of the favorite vacation spots that we like to do is we love to go to the beach. But I see someone, I'm just going to put my feet in the water. Why did you come all the way down here just to put your feet in the water? So we need to be taught water safety and get our kids, to embrace water safety so that, even if we don't have access to pools and stuff in our community, there are opportunities in our life where we will be exposed to the water, and we need to know what to do when we get in it. And because sometimes it's safe, sometimes it's not, and we need to know how to be able to respond in all situations. I
And
want
when
to
it
go ahead.
and when it comes to water safety, I think that there has to be more accountability with swim instructors. It just makes my blood boil when I see a swim instructor stop at front crawl when they're teaching somebody how to swim. Swim lessons have to be done with fidelity. You can't just stop at front crawl or freestyle.
Mm-hmm.
You need to teach them how they're supposed to respond to different scenarios. They need to know how to tread water. They need to know how to get out of the pool safely. They need to know what to do if they fall off a boat and have to swim back to that boat in order to get themselves to safety. Or what if you have to swim 75 yards to shore and you get tired at 50 yards?
Mm,
What do you do if you fall off a boat and you're fully dressed?
mm,
What do you do if you
Good
get
point.
caught in a rip current? How do you get out of that? Swim lessons need to be done with more fidelity. And I think that's going to take a community effort. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest factors in changing the narrative and changing how water safety is perceived.
Good points. Good points. Because I was just thinking swimming pools, but it's so much bigger than that. I mean, because I just read an article where a young boy, he was 7, and he swam for like over an hour to get some help for his dad and his other brother that had fallen into some sort of issue, whatever. So, I'm pretty sure you think about the wet clothes, and he still had to go through. You mentioned what happens if you fall over in a boat. I mean, we're out here on jet skis. What happens if anything? I mean, I guess it is bigger than just the swimming pool. I hadn't really, I mean, I guess it's there, but I hadn't really thought about that dynamic. But it is bigger than just learning how to swim in a pool. There's all sorts of facets, almost Navy SEAL training, almost
Right.
like. Hmm.
And just this week in Albany, we had an article in the news about someone who went swimming in the river that flows through Albany, the Flint River,
Mm-hmm.
and the person swam across the river and then swam back to the other side. And then when they tried to swim back again, they went under, and they're still searching for this person now.
Wow.
About a day and a half, 2 days later, they're still searching for this person.
Wow. And this person was a swimmer, had the
And this
skills to
person
swim.
was a swimmer. And I think that too often swimmers also overestimate their abilities.
Mm.
You also have to have a healthy respect of the water. As proficient as a swimmer I am, I'm not going to get into a pool that I cannot stand up in if there's not a lifeguard on duty.
Okay. 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 So, do you recommend, as a swim coach, do you recommend not only teaching kids swimming in pools, but getting them out into like more outdoors environments and teaching swimming lessons in those environments as well?
I definitely believe that if you have access to those environments, we don't live on the water here, but if there was an ocean where I live, then one of the things I would definitely do as part of my swim lessons is take them to the ocean,
Mhm.
teach them how to swim out of rip currents, teach them how to get back to shore without tiring yourself out. I think that those things are so important. It's definitely bigger than the pool, and even for elite swimmers, Michael Phelps can drown if the conditions are right. So we definitely can't overestimate our abilities as swimmers, and we can't take anything for granted.
Gotcha. Good points. Good points. Okay. Good eye openers. Now, I want to talk about some of the wonderful things that you're doing with the next generation that's coming up, the future swimmers. Now, I read that you're the head coach of a group of kids called the Stingrays. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And they did some pretty wonderful things from what I read. Correct? 8 of them.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So I've been coaching the team for about 4 years now, and I was not looking for coaching at the time. It was just divine timing that I ended up in that position. I was initially hired by the YMCA to lifeguard during the summer. And then one day I was turning in some paperwork, and my supervisor was talking to her supervisor about the swim team and some of the other programs that they were trying to get going for the summer. And we ended up talking, and my supervisor learned that I actually had a background in swimming. The person who was coaching the team at the time was preparing to leave and join the military. So I was interviewed on the spot for the coaching position. And I didn't even realize I was being interviewed at the time. We were just talking. She was asking me questions, and somebody called, and she said, "I have to call you back. I'm in the middle of an interview." And the rest is history. So since that time, I've gotten certified through USA Swimming and through ASCA, American Swim Coaches Association. And I'm currently, as I said earlier, finishing my master's
Ooh, that's
in
good.
sports coaching. And my swimmers have even inspired me to return to competitive swimming.
Awesome.
One day at practice, one of my swimmers asked me if I still competed, and I told them no. When they asked why, I couldn't give them an answer. And they said, "Well, you should start just training and competing again, Coach Richard." I said, "You know what? You're right." So I went for it. And at my first master swim meet, I had two second place finishes, one first place finish, and a fifth place finish. And the one event that I thought I was going to die in actually ended up being my second fastest.
Congratulations. Go ahead. Giving the kids a good example. I love it. Now, just curious because some things I'm not naive about when it comes to swimming. Um, what, because you're the kids that you coach, they qualified. What does it take or what does it mean to qualify? What do you have to do? I'm ignorant in that.
Well, every year we're a part of GRPA, which is Georgia Recreations and Parks Association. And every summer we have a district meet and we have a state meet.
Mhm.
So in order for a child to qualify for the state meet, then they have to finish in the top three in their events at the district meet.
Okay. Okay.
So I've had swimmers go to the state meet 2 years in a row. The first year that I went, I had 8 swimmers that qualified. The second year, I had 7 swimmers that qualified, and one swimmer actually missed finals by 4/100ths of a second.
Wow. That's all right. Come back and get them next year. Come back stronger. That's it. That's it. Now you mentioned you started out as a lifeguard in the Y, and one of the things that is interesting to me. I said earlier that my mother had was responsible for getting a pool put back in my hometown. But one of the things that we noticed was there was a lack of Black lifeguards, and this is a diverse neighborhood. Why can't we can't even get the lifeguards? I understand we can't swim, but we can't even get the lifeguards.
And I think that goes back once again to what we were saying about the fear that's been instilled in our race.
Mm-hmm.
There are many people who have such a fear that even if they're able to swim, they don't feel that they can complete the prerequisites required to become a lifeguard. And the prerequisites are being able to swim 300 yards of either freestyle or breaststroke, and then tread in water for 2 minutes without using your hands, and then retrieving a 10-pound brick from the bottom of the deep end, and then swimming back to the wall with the brick out of the water while you're on your back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a big part of why we're not seeing as much representation with lifeguards goes right back to that element of there not being a generational effort to promote swimming in our race and promote water safety.
We got a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do.
We definitely have a lot of work to do.
Wow. Now, let's say you have a parent or a child who has no swim knowledge at all, but they find themselves in a dire circumstance where they've been, accidentally thrown into a pool or a creek or whatever. So now they're in survival mode. What tip would you give to them for immediate just response for water safety?
Well, the first thing to do would be to stay calm
Mm-hmm.
and not to panic, because many people end up in trouble in the water when they panic. And if they have been taught water safety, because they're in panic mode, they forget some of the things that they've learned. But for someone who has absolutely no water safety background, one thing that everybody has the ability to do is to float. And the easiest way to do that is by raising your arms above your head and laying back on the water. And the more you raise your arms, that's going to cause your feet to lift up a little more. So
Okay.
one thing that everybody has the ability to do, and many people think that they don't, but one thing that everybody has the ability to do is to float simply by laying back on the water and raising your arms. And then once you do that, your feet will automatically lift up.
Good tips. One of the rumors that I used to hear growing up, when I started to realize that they were saying that Black folks don't swim, is that one of the reasons we couldn't float was because our booties was too big.
I've heard everything. I've heard our breasts are too big. I've heard our bones are too heavy. I've heard so many things. And I'm thinking, who is coming up with this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look at 2 skeletons, you cannot tell which skeleton came from a Black person, which one came from an Asian person, which one came from a white person, because our skeletons all look the same.
Mm-hmm. And all the same weight, you know what I'm saying? But it's amazing to me, the stuff that we believe and that we pass down from generation. Like I said earlier, I know people to this day refuse to step on a crack because they swear up and down they're gonna break their mama's back. Now I want to talk about you have a project, it's your screen name and everything, but it's also something that you've got going on down there in Georgia, chlorinated educator, and you're offering lessons and tutoring and GED. So I want to know what you do, because you got some other stuff going on here. What's that? What's that about?
All right. Well, last year I applied for an LLC and I gave it the name Chlorinated Educator because I wanted to combine the two things that I'm passionate about: water safety, aquatics, and education as well. Because I'm also a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I didn't get it off the ground running the way that I wanted to because the pandemic
Mm-hmm.
pretty much put a roadblock in it. But it's one of the things that I'm looking to have going in the upcoming year. But as you said, the purpose of it is for me to offer water safety as well as tutoring, as well as GED training for people who are applying for the GED. So the main elements of that are the water safety as well as the tutoring.
Okay. So down in Albany, Georgia, where's I know Georgia, but not that. I don't know this city that well. Where's Albany at?
Albany is about 2.5 to 3 hours south of Atlanta.
Oh, okay. So the community that you teach in, is there a lot of pools for the kids there to swim in, or is it just the Y?
Well, the Y is the only pool that's open year round. We have an indoor pool that's open year round, and we have an outdoor pool that opens on Memorial Day, and it usually stays open until around September or October. We have a pool at the Boys and Girls Club, but it's only open during the summer. So
Okay.
as far as pools that are consistently running, the only one we have in the city that's consistently running is our pool at the YMCA. And we do have a couple of other pools in the community that are open during the summer, but our indoor pool is really the only one that's operating year round. In addition to the pools that we have at our local college, but once again, there's very limited access to those pools.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now, just curious, has there been situations where white parents or white kids have walked in and been like a little surprised, taken aback to see a black coach?
If they have, they haven't visibly shown it to me.
Okay.
One thing that I am happy about is that I've gotten pretty good reception from anybody who I've done swim lessons for, or even parents whose children come out to try out for the team. As far as I know, I haven't gotten a negative feedback from anyone. They come up to me and they talk to me. I let them know the things that I expect when a child is trying out for the team. I let them know the things that I'm going to work on while we're doing lessons. So far, everybody who I've interacted with has received me positively.
Awesome. I love it. So when a kid is trying out for your team, what do they have to do?
The first thing that I would like to have them do is swim 50 yards. The pool that we have is 25 yards, so that would be down and back. And then I like to see if they know any strokes other than freestyle. If they don't know any, then that's fine because I can teach them to them once they join the team. And then I take them through about 30 minutes of practice with the team just to get an idea of what their water fitness level is. The only thing that stops me from letting a child join the team is if I don't feel safe with them in the water.
Okay.
I never look at how fast they are when they're trying out. My main goal is to see that you can safely do what I'm asking you to do. And in the event that I don't feel safe with the child in the water, then I offer lessons for them if they're still interested. And then after the lessons finish, they can come back and try out for the team again. And I actually had a situation 2 years ago where a child did try out for the team, and her trial was just so bad that I actually thought I was going to have to rescue her.
Oh,
So I ended up stopping her and I offered lessons to her. She completed her lessons, came back. She tried out for the team again. Not only did she make the team, but she was also one of my state qualifiers.
you go, girl.
And this is what really let me know that I'm doing the right thing. One day I went into the pool before practice and I actually saw her teaching someone else how to swim.
You Go,
And the person
girl.
that she was teaching how to swim was an adult. So I definitely believe in paying it forward, and it really makes me feel good about what I'm doing when I see my swimmers actually start to pay it forward.
That's right. That's right. Now, what's the youngest you've had in one of your classes?
The youngest child I've done swim lessons for has been 2 years old. The youngest child that's been on the team has been 5. The oldest has been 15. The oldest person that I've done lessons for, I actually did lessons for a 22-year-old with autism.
Oh,
And I've
yes.
actually done quite a few lessons for children with disabilities because, in addition to being a classroom teacher, the first 5 years of my career, I was a special education teacher.
Okay. Okay. Good stuff. So you got good background there. Good patience. A lot of patience, I'm assuming, right?
Sometimes I think I have too much, but yes. But God gave me exactly what I asked for. When I was a teenager, I prayed for patience, and God said, "Okay, I'm giving you a boatload of it."
That's right. Put you in a whole bunch of situations to test it too. Now, just curious, for a lot of us in our communities, like I mentioned earlier, we don't have access to pools. Um, so, but a lot of parents might be out there saying, I do want my kids to learn how to swim. So, is there like a go-to online resource they can check out to say, well, I might have to drive 30 minutes or so, or 40 minutes or so, but I see there's a place here in my city, or I see there's a place. Is there some sort of online place they can go to check out to see where black swimmers are going to?
Yes, ma'am. One resource that I know is a credible resource is usaswimming.org. And they actually have an initiative dealing with water safety. It's called Make a Splash. And the way that this works is they're doing everything that they can to promote swimming safety, to promote water safety, swim lessons. And one of the things that they do with this initiative also is they try to use Olympic swimmers to actually be the ones who are the instructors in the lesson. So if you go to the usaswimming.org website and look up Make a Splash, then it shows where they're offering lessons that are close to you.
Oh, great. Okay, awesome. We'll get that out there. We'll make sure we put that in the credits when we do this. Now we are at the end of my time. I try not to take up too much time because you guys are so generous in talking to this strange lady that you've never talked to before. So I appreciate that. So I want to ask you my random question. And then, is there a way you have a way for people to connect with you if they're in your area to get a lesson if possible? You can give that to us.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let
You
me
can reach me. You
hold,
can
hold on.
reach
Let me
me.
hold on a
I'm
second. Let me
sorry.
do this. Let me do this, and then we'll do that. Let's see what we got. Let's see what we got here. Which is better, cats or dogs?
Cats, definitely cats. I'm a cat person all day.
Okay, my
I
cat.
actually have a cat that I think adopted me right now because every day when I come home, I haven't fed the cat or anything, but it's waiting for me at my door and it falls asleep in my car every morning.
That's right. They sense a good spirit. So I already know you have a good heart if you got a cat following you around. So that's great. So now, Mr. Kennedy, could you please tell people how they connect with you if you're down that way and they want to connect with you for swim lessons, or even just see the kids swim or something like that?
They can connect with me by reaching out to me through my Facebook page, Richard Kennedy. So I use my actual name there. And then my Instagram and Twitter are Chlorinated Educator, CHLORIN, the number 8, and then the letter D, and then Educator, EDUC, the number 8, and then R. And it's the same on every one of my social medias with the exception of my Facebook, my TikTok, Instagram, and my Twitter are all Chlorinated Educator.
So all teachers got TikTok. Now, before we go, Richard, I want to read something because I saw something on one of your Instagram posts, and I want everybody should hear this. Everybody needs to experience it. So I want to take the time to read this, and then we're going to close out here. So this is what you wrote on one of your Instagram posts. I'll probably step on some toes with this post, but oh well. I am a proud Black teacher of beautiful Black children. I intentionally teach at predominantly Black schools. I intentionally teach at nothing but Title I high poverty schools. Why? because our kids need to see themselves represented in places other than music videos, reality shows, street corners, and crucified in the news. They need to see that success can and does look like them. I tell them about my struggles, successes, failures, and personal experiences with racism. I tell them that I have 2 college degrees and I'm working on the third. I tell them to dream big, work hard, and love the skin they're in. I tell my boys that walking away from a fight doesn't make you a punk. I tell my girls that having standards doesn't make you stuck up or bougie. I tell them that I love them as they were my own. I set high expectations. I stress to them the importance of voting once they come of age and being the change they want to see. I am a proud Black teacher of beautiful Black children. I want to say thank you. Thank you for your commitment to our kids, to our community, to the work that you are doing. You are doing amazing things that the kids, as they grow older and pass on to their kids, will surely, surely remember. You are truly making a change. And I cannot say thank you, thank you, thank you enough for your work.
Thank you so much.
All righty, Mr. Kennedy, it has been a pleasure talking to you, and I wish you nothing but the best. But we are at the end of this episode. That is all for this week's episode of The Male Perspective. I am your host, Lana Reid, and I will see everybody next time.